So hopefully you already have your birth chart ready. If not, that's perfectly okay. You can just scan this QR code. This will take you to my website where you can get a free birth chart, and then I will send it to you as soon as I can. I will also put a link for this into the description. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't let me put links in my videos, so right now it's just a QR code. So we're going to get started. And so I have a chart ready. So this is what a birth chart looks like. And this is just kind of a random chart. I picked a random birth date, time, and place, and named it John Doe. And this specific chart, this is what it'll look like if you order a birth chart through my site. I do novice charts. That's what this is, so that it's easier for you to kind of read and figure out where everything is in your chart more easily. So we're just going to go through the parts of this chart. So I'm going to start in this upper left corner here. That's just the software I use and information about it. Below it, though, is this little chart about the elements and modalities in your chart. This is where you can see how many planets or different parts of your chart are in a specific element or modality. We have 6 planets and chart elements in fire, 2 in earth, 2 in air, 2 in water, 3 in cardinal signs, 2 in fixed signs, and 7 in mutable modality. So this chart is a lot of fire and a lot of mutable energy. This upper center here, this is the actual birth chart itself. This is basically a map of the stars when you were born and what it looks like. This basically can tell you almost everything you want to know about yourself or someone else when you look at their birth chart. And so this is the actual chart itself. If you go to the right, or upper right corner, we have the name, the birth date, the city of birth, the time of birth, and like what time zone you're in for this, and where that is on the map, basically the coordinates of this city. So you want to check this when you generate a chart to make sure that this information is correct. Because if this information isn't correct, then the birth chart will be incorrect. All right, so now we're going to go a little bit lower. So below the birth chart to the left, this is a little aspect chart. So these symbols are different planets. This one is the North Node. And this, I believe, is either Earth or part of Fortune. Let me see. This is part of Fortune in this chart. Okay. And you have all those planets again. And so these are the aspects between the planets. That's what this chart represents. So for instance, if you want to know what aspect the moon, you would go to the moon symbol here. And then you'd see that it's square, the part of Fortune. It's semi-sextile Neptune. It's biquintile Saturn. And it's square Mars, semi-sextile Venus. This is a septile to Mercury and a quincunx. No, this is a quintile to the sun. So you can see here all the different aspects in this chart. So if you go below that, it can kind of help you figure out what this means, because this is a lot of symbols. These are the legends for the aspects and planets and zodiac signs down here on the bottom. So this first area here, right below this aspect chart, is the legend for the aspects, basically. So you can see the symbols here down the left side, and then right next to them is the name for that aspect. So that these first couple, 1, 2, 3, 4, these first 5 are the really important aspects in the chart. So you really want to start with these. The rest of them are a little bit more vague and harder to understand. But these first 5 are the more important aspects. In fact, the first 4 are major aspects, whereas everything else is kind of more minor. So, as you can see here, this symbol is for the conjunction. And then you can see, this is how the circle is divided for this aspect. So the circle is divided by 0, by 1. It's divided by 1, not 0, because you can't divide by 0. So the conjunction is at the same degree, and it shows here that that's exact conjunction would be 0 degrees, 0 minutes. But there's an orb that you can have, which is how far from exact degrees that would still count as a conjunction or any other aspect, really. So it's a 10-degree orb for the sun, a 10-degree orb for the moon, and in this chart, 8 degrees for the other planets. And this chart has 3 conjunctions. It shows the number of the aspect in the chart. If you go down to opposition, it shows you an opposition is the circle cut in half, which means that it's exact when it's 180 degrees apart. And then you can see the orb again for each of those. The trine is the circle cut in 3 parts, which is 120 degrees. The square is the circle cut in 4 parts, which is 90 degrees. And the sextile is cut in 6 parts, which is 60 degrees apart. The semi-sextile is cut 8 parts for the circle, which is 45 degrees. And as you can see, when you get to sextile, because it's more of a minor aspect and everything else below it, that the orb actually changes. So the sextile, the orb for the sun, it has to be within 6 degrees. For the moon, it's also 6 degrees. And the planet, it's 5 degrees. Whereas for the major aspects, it's 10 for the sun, 10 for the moon, and 8 for planets. All right. And looks like for the semi-sextile, it's 4 degrees orb for moon and sun, and 3 for planets. And that's generally the orb it looks like for the rest of them. Some people don't count that for minor aspects. Usually the orb is tighter. Sometimes people don't count certain aspects unless they're about a degree apart from exact. All right. And then if you go to the right of this, you'll see the zodiac signs. So here are the zodiac signs. And to the left of these is the symbol for the zodiac sign. And then if you go to the right, you have the planet symbols. And to the right of that, you have the name for each of those planets or parts of the chart, because it also has the node, part of fortune, and midheaven. And this actually tells you where your planets are. So if you look, you have the moon. It has the symbol to the left, but to the right, it says this moon is in Taurus in the 12th house at 27 degrees of Taurus and 38 minutes. So if you go up to the chart, you'll see here's the moon, the symbol of the moon. It's in the sign of Taurus, which you see here. It's 27 degrees and 38 minutes. And as you can see, this is in the 12th house. So you would do that with each of your planets. So you would go down here to the sun. There's the symbol for the sun. It says it's in Pisces. In the 10th house, 15 degrees, Pisces, 44 minutes. So then define the sun. It's all the way up here. The symbol of the sun, the symbol of Pisces at 15 degrees, 44 minutes in the 10th house. And once you memorize each of these symbols for the signs, each of these symbols for the planets, and you can see the house for each part of the chart, you won't need legends like this really nearly as much, because then you can see it for yourself. For instance, here's Mercury, the symbol of Mercury in the sign of Aries, 3 minutes, or 3 degrees, 46 minutes. And, Venus is also in the sign of Aries. So this is the planet Venus, sign of Aries, degree, 25 degrees, 17 minutes. Both Mercury and Venus are in the 11th house. And then Mars is over here. This is the symbol of Mars with 4 degrees of Pisces and 35 minutes in the 10th house. And after we identify Mars, we can look at Jupiter. This is the symbol for Jupiter. And it's in Sagittarius, 10 degrees, 11 minutes in the 6th house. And as you can see, these all go down here. So we'd also have Saturn. The Saturn's in Capricorn in the 7th house, 3 degrees, Capricorn, 50 minutes. So let's find Saturn. The Saturn's over here. The symbol of Saturn, Capricorn, 3 degrees, 50 minutes. So these group of degrees show you where it is in the chart and in the sign, right? So this is 3 degrees, 50 minutes of Capricorn specifically. Because there's 30 degrees for each sign. It starts at 0 and then goes up to 29 and probably 59 minutes. All right, so then there's Uranus, Sagittarius, 6th house, 12 degrees, 26 minutes. As you can see, that's over here. Here's the symbol for Uranus in Sagittarius, 12 degrees, 26 minutes. We can go to Neptune. Neptune's over here in Gemini, 24 degrees, 13 minutes. This is in the 1st house. Uranus is also in the 6th house with Jupiter. We have Pluto, which is in Gemini at 14 degrees, 42 minutes in the 12th house. And then we have the North Node at 15 degrees, Sagittarius, 44 minutes. And as you can see, it's right on this line, but you see this is 15 degrees and this is 17 degrees for the 7th house. So this is in the 6th house, but it's conjunct the 7th house cusp or the descendant. Pluto over here, as you can see, is at 14 degrees Gemini. And the ascendant, that's what this is, the 1st house. The cusp of the 1st house is your ascendant, or otherwise known as your rising sign. And it's at 17 degrees while Pluto is at 14. So Pluto is in the 12th house, but conjunct the ascendant. All right. Then we have the part of fortune. That's this symbol down here. 29 degrees, 48 minutes in Leo. I know that's a little bit hard to see. Otherwise, though, in this chart, you look at the angles. So we already looked at the ascendant, which is here. So the ascendant is Gemini. This is the rising sign, 17 degrees, 54 minutes. The descendant is directly opposite. It's the cusp of the 7th house, and it's 17 degrees, 54 minutes Sagittarius. As you can see, these are directly opposite. They are exactly opposite. 0 degrees, 0 minutes apart in orb, but they are exactly 180 degrees apart, your ascendant and descendant. Now, another important angle is the IC, which is your 4th house cusp. And that's going to be down here. So here's the 4th house. The beginning of the 4th house is at 24 degrees Leo, 40 minutes. And if you go directly opposite that, 180 degrees, you'll have your 10th house cusp, which is your midheaven, which is at 24 degrees, 40 minutes of Aquarius. So those are the angles. Those are really important. And so each of these parts of the chart are important. However, some are a little bit more important than others. For instance, the three most important parts of your chart are your ascendant, the cusp of your first house, your rising sign, your moon sign and placement, and your sun sign and placement. Also, anything that aspects the ascendant, moon, or sun really affects how you express yourself and your personality and the life circumstances that you will experience in this lifetime. So let's look at some aspects for those. This doesn't show the ascendant. When I send out charts on my site, I will make sure the ascendant is included in these aspects because it helps and it's important. So for instance, we looked at the aspects to the moon, right? Well, right next to the moon is the sun. And as you can see, there are 5 squares. See, these are squares, 5 squares to this sun. And unfortunately, it doesn't show any aspects to the ascendant, which is unfortunate because there are aspects to the ascendant because we were looking at it. So if you want to look at some of these in the chart, let's take a look, see what actual aspects are occurring here. So we have the sun, which is square quite a few different things. So squares are 90 degrees, and every sign has about 30 degrees. Well, it does have 30 degrees for each sign, which means 90 divided by 30. You're going to have 3 signs apart. So if you have something that's at the same degree, but 3 signs apart, it's going to be square. This can be memorized too. So Sagittarius and Pisces at the same degree are always square. Because it's always about, if it's in the same modality, it is either square or opposite in a chart. So as you can see, we have the sun, and this is in a mutable sign. So any mutable sign at 15 degrees is going to square or oppose his sun. So if you go down, we can see that we have Gemini over here, we have Sagittarius over here, and we have Virgo down here. So it looks like we have the sun is square Pluto and the ascendant. We also have sun square the north node, Uranus, Jupiter, the descendant. And also because the north node and south node are directly opposite, just like your ascendant descendant, this person's south node is over here and also square the sun. So that's pretty karmic, as this is a little bit more complicated than I'll go into. But this actually creates a T-square. As you can see, there's planets over here that are squaring, planets over here that are squaring to the sun, and it creates a giant T. And the focal point, I believe, on this would be the sun. So this person has a lot of intense energy directed on their sun. So this person has a lot going on in how they express themselves, the core of their personality, and they're really in the public, because as you can see, the sun is in the 10th house. So the placement of planets in the chart kind of tells you where people's focus is, and the planet kind of tells you specifically the energy that's there a little bit. So for instance, the planets themselves are kind of the characters in the chart. They represent the people in your life as well as like the parts of your personality. Whereas the sign that your planets are in is the personality of that part of yourself or that person in your life. So the sun is like the father. And this is in the sign of Pisces. This person's father had a Piscean personality, or at least that's how they saw them. And the house is the where, right? So this being in the 10th house has even more to do with the father, because this is authority figures, your career, your reputation. This is very Capricorn energy in the 10th house. So there's a lot going on here, especially. So when you divide the chart up, so the ascendant, descendant, below this is like more personal. Above it is more public. So if you have a lot of planets in the top half of your chart, chances are you're going to be famous or have like a reputation where you're well known for something. People are going to know about you and what you're doing. Whereas if you have a lot of planets in the lower half of the chart, it's a lot of focus on your own family, on yourself, and your own personal life. So there's not a whole lot of perhaps public adoration or scrutiny. You're kind of a little bit more hidden if most of your planets are below the horizon. The left half is also more personal, and the right half of the chart is a little bit more public as well. It's not as obvious as like the upper half of the chart being public and the lower half being more private. So for instance, like the first quarter of the chart is really about you, your family, your values, your community, you and your personal life. The bottom right is more how you interact with the external world a little bit. It has to do with your romances, the work that you do, your partnerships. So it's still personal life, but more having to do with like other people in your personal life. Whereas, this 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th is this half of the chart, or well, this quarter of the chart is more, it's definitely public and has to do a lot with like career, reputation, things like that. It's more outwards, definitely you more interacting with the world. Whereas like after the 10th house into the 11th, 12th, it's more kind of your place in the world a little bit. Like, so how you are in your groups and associations, your friends, and also like your subconscious and like the world subconscious, basically how you kind of fit into that. Other than this, we'd be getting into really specific stuff. And of course, like I want to go further in all of these areas. So the next course that I have up, the next workshop, is on embodying your planets, which is going to be based on their sign and house placement. And then there we can kind of dig into each of these planets and what they represent, and how to embody those energies in your chart to be able to reap the benefits of those planets instead of them working from a more subconscious place and driving your life without your knowing. And I will hopefully see you guys in another workshop. Bye. Now, if you're interested in having a one-on-one reading with me, you can just scan this QR code. It'll take you to my website where you can schedule an appointment with me for either an astrology reading or tarot reading. I also have like a 20-minute spiritual consultation so that we can figure out what you need specifically. I will also put the link for this in the description. So I have a really exciting announcement to make. We're planning a water sign retreat for July of 2023. Now, if you want to stay updated on this and learn more about this, I'll put a link in the description to my newsletter and also to the event page that we'll have for this.